Hello everybody, and welcome to part, I think we're probably past 30 at this point, of my Fire Emblem 6 Hard Mode chapter guide. Today we're going to be looking at chapter 22, The Never-Ending Dream, which is the chapter we finally get to fight Zephiel. He's been the sort of the big bad throughout this entire game. Now, it is important to note here that if you did not get all the Divine Weapons, or if you lost any along the way, this will be the last chapter of the game. If you collect all the Divine Weapons and you get them through this chapter, you get to do there's two full chapters and then sort of a final little chapter type thing. So either way, we're getting really close to the end of the game, but this may be the last chapter of the entire game for you. But as always, I've decided to start us off with just a map of the chapter just so you can get a good idea of what it looks like. The first thing to note about the chapter is that your army is split up, which is really dangerous. As I've said before, I think splitting up your army is a terrible idea, unless the game forces you, which of course in this case it is. So we have to. The nice thing is that you can bring a lot of units. I'll say just right off the bat, I think the left side is a lot sketchier than the right side. There's a few reasons for this. Number one, you just have less units to bring on the left side as opposed to the right side. The bigger reason, though, is that the druids that are outlined in the red on the left and the hero and the sniper down at the bottom will both push your sort of left force right off the bat. And those are pretty sketchy because druids at this stage, you probably know this, hit really, really hard. And I mentioned in the last video that heroes are really scary too. There's also some status stabs in the middle, and if they start focusing down your left side, you can wind up in some really sketchy situations. Now, the nice thing is that Roy's on the right side, so that's the one that you'll have to worry about more, obviously, at least in for him to survive, which is the most important thing. But it's just a lot easier. The things that are highlighted in red on the right side, so the druids in the north and the hero and the sniper, they don't move unless you're in range, and there just isn't very much to deal with over there. So you can be a lot more, you can use a lot more weaker units. Although you do still have to be careful. Obviously, don't put nobody over there to help out Roy. The nice thing too is that Roy does have the Binding Blade at this point, which even if you haven't trained him, means he can deal a little bit of damage at least. But obviously, you shouldn't be using him in combat very much. The next thing to know are status stabs on the map. As you can see, there are a few druids that have A over them. The one in the middle, just south of the throne room, that druid does have Berserk with a ton of magic, so be really careful with that. You're going to want restores here. The bishop in the bottom that says A on it has a silent staff. So these two can combine to make things really awkward. This is one of the reasons that I mentioned Yodel and the Divine Staff being extremely useful, because you can sort of trade it off, and even if your units get silenced, or if somebody across the map gets berserked and you really need to restore them, you can do it from across the map because that can do it from anywhere. So be really careful with this stuff, but the Saint Staff is extremely useful here. Now, the units in red, I did mention them. The biggest thing to know about them is if you're not playing on hard mode, don't have to worry about them at all. They only show up after you start the map, and they only show up on hard mode. But if you are playing on hard mode, which this chapter guide is mostly for, then you are going to have to worry about them. Cath does show up on this chapter. As you can see, there's really not much point in this. If you ever recruited her, I suppose you can free up a deployment slot by not bringing a thief to open up the chests. You don't really have to do that anyways. There's some nice stuff in these chests, but it's not really that important at this stage in the game. But yeah, Cath does appear on the chapter. The staircases at the top that are also highlighted in red will have reinforcements. These are actually periodic reinforcements. Every 10 chapters, I think, starting on turn 10 or 5 or something like that, some bishops will show up, and they do show up with status stabs, but never berserk, so I wouldn't worry too much about them. We'll talk about them in sort of the safest way to handle the chapter. It does involve them, but I'll get into that when the actual chapter starts. The way to open the throne room, which as you can see is in the middle of the map, is to put somebody on the top left tile and the top right tile that are both being guarded by heroes. Now, you don't have to keep units on these tiles. Once you step on them, it will trigger it, and then you just have to send Roy to the middle, right in front of the gates, and it'll open, and then you can fight Zephiel. So that's the main gist of the chapter. As far as the strategy here is concerned, there's kind of a routine, like, fast way to do it, which is just to get onto those tiles as quickly as possible and then bum rush the boss. But the really safe way to do it is to wait a lot of turns. And as I said, I'll get into that when we actually get into the gameplay, but that's the strategy that I'm going to be talking about and implementing in my gameplay. So, yep, let's get right into the actual map and the battle preps. Okay, so now we're looking at the actual map itself. I haven't really done my preps at all yet, but I just want to talk a little bit about a few more things, and specifically the strategy before we actually start. As you can see, the Berserk druid that I was talking about does have cap magic, and while this guy doesn't have cap magic, it's still pretty scary. He does have the silent staff. Now, The units that spawn here and here are, as I said, bishops that come with, I believe they both have sleep, something along those lines, right? But the biggest thing about them is that Zephiel will be about here. So when you open up the door, Zephiel is gonna be about here. Now they both have physics staves. This is really sketchy because Zephiel is pretty tanky. He's not a super difficult boss, just because like most bosses, you can just kind of combine all your units together and kill him pretty easily. But you're probably gonna have to do that over the course of a couple of turns. So if he's being physic healed by these bishops, for example, it can be really, really sketchy. Now, it's also important to note that there's no reinforcements on the rest of the map, except for your starting positions, and they won't spawn until you've opened the door. So as long as you kill Zephiel within a couple of turns of opening the door, you'll never have to worry about them. The thing about these reinforcements is that, as I said, they periodically come every like 5 to 10 turns until about turn 45. But after turn 45, they'll never show up again as long as you kill them. So what you can do, and this is, as I said, the safest strategy in my opinion to defeat this chapter, is kill all of the units on the chapter, get these two, then wait until after turn 45. I usually wait until like after turn 60. I'm not 100% sure when it is, but you can pretty much wait whenever. But the guide that the Fire Emblem WOD says turn 45. In any case, have somebody stay back here, kill these two bishops, then wait some more turns, get everybody around this area, and when you open this, you'll be at full strength here, and you won't have to worry about anybody physic healing Zephiel. The reinforcements that spawn from where you start don't have physic, or at least they won't get into range to actually physic heal him. So this is, in my opinion, by far the safest way to handle this chapter. It is a little bit long and tedious, but I would highly recommend using this, especially if you're ever struggling with this chapter. There's nothing worse, especially if you're doing an Iron Man, than getting into here, hitting Zephiel, and just watching him get healed over and over and over again. You can also keep somebody back here, and when you're ready to take on Zephiel, kill them. It's the same strategy, but this way you don't have to wait until turn 45. The downside with this strategy is you're then on a clock, because in like 5-ish turns they'll show up again, and whoever you send back here won't be able to help you out with the throne room. So again, I think the safest thing is to wait out the turns. The throne room is also pretty difficult. There's a lot of enemies in here, so you really want to be at full strength. We'll talk about that more when we get to the throne room, because I can explain the units a little bit better. But yes, this is the strategy that I'll be implementing, and I would highly recommend, if you just want to go with the safest strategy possible, I think this is definitely it. As I said, as far as the preps are concerned, I'm just going to have my stronger units over here. Make sure you have as much restore as possible, and then, as I said, the Saint Staff is going to be extremely useful here. So I'll probably start skipping around at this point. I will say most of this chapter, once you get past sort of this first area where you get bum rushed by these heroes and druids, there really isn't a lot of difficulty to this chapter until you get to the throne room. So yeah, I'll probably be skipping around a decent amount from here on out. Okay, so I finished my preps. Just a few more things to mention really quick. Number one, I mentioned that bringing legendary weapons or divine weapons at this point is pretty sketchy. Zephiel can be kind of annoying to kill. He does have a lot of defense and HP. It's actually kind of funny. Zephiel, I believe, has 1 more HP between normal mode and hard mode, which might make you think that he's not that tough, but his stats are pretty darn high. He's like 74 health or something, so bringing divine weapons I don't think is the worst idea. Just be extra careful with them, because again, if you do lose the character where they're equipped or you run out of hits, they will go away. I was actually kind of using the Saint Staff a bunch. It only has 1 more use. I'll be hammering that. This is extremely useful. Hammering is amazing. Obviously, it can get anything back to full use, so as long as you have hammer, using the divine weapons isn't that big of a deal. I'll be probably doing that on turn 1. And then, as you can see, I've kind of spaced out where I have my restore users. I have 2 over here, and then 2 over here along with the Saint Staff. Also, we talked before about how the deployment order works. So, these should actually be switched now that I think about it. I'll actually mess this up a little bit. So I'm going to have Rucker, Astal, and Diane as my last 3 units. Hopefully they get Berserk. They're not really that important. They're just kind of nice combat units, and I am bringing Astal. As I said, what's in the chest really isn't that crucial at this point, but you may as well if you have some room. And then over here I have definitely my stronger units. Shin, Lu, and Milady are definitely some of my stronger units, and then I have Lalum to kind of help out. Because as I said, it can get a little hairy over here. You only have 6 units, so definitely put your better units over there. But yeah, shouldn't be too tough, hopefully. And yeah. Okay, one last thing I want to mention really quick is just Roy. As you can see, my Roy is pretty darn weak. I really didn't train him much at all. There's 2 things I want to mention with Roy. Number 1 is that the Binding Blade, which we just got, is really strong. It has 18 might, and you can attack at range. So you can see even how weak he is, how much damage he can actually do. this isn't super important, but it's going to be really good when attacking Manicheets, because that's how effective damage works. It doubles and I think triples in this game the might. It's either double or triple. So he's going to be able to deal a lot of damage. This is really important. I haven't mentioned this, but in order to get the good ending, if that's desirable to you, you are going to want Roy to kill the final boss, Idun. Now, the nice thing about that is that even if you have, like, base Roy, like horrible Roy, which we basically do, he'll still deal a shit ton of damage with the Binding Blade when attacking Idun. So, mostly I just want to mention this at this stage, because even though you do want to continue to be really careful with Roy, and I certainly will be, the Binding Blade does offer some decent damage even against non-Manicheets, but don't worry about, like, training him or anything if you want to get that good ending. As I said, you can pretty much do it with, like, base level Roy. It doesn't really matter. He does get +5 defense, +5 res, but at this stage his stats are so bad that, you know, be really careful with him. And unfortunately it only has 28 hits. Also, just an aside really quick, I really hate this about this game. When he promotes, he gets a special animation when using the Binding Blade, but it's only when he uses that. So if we, like, use the Rapier, for example, this is a terrible combat, but I'll just show it off. He still looks like the Roy from the beginning of the game. This has nothing to do with the guide or strategy, but it just really frustrates me. Yeah, but he looks really cool when he's using the Binding Blade, so... In any case, though, the point is, the Binding Blade is pretty useful, and even if you have a really weak Roy, you can still offer some decent combat. Okay, one thing I just want to mention really quick, because these Nosferatu Druids are really annoying to deal with. As you can see, even my incredibly strong Milady does take 33 damage, which taking that much damage isn't really the end of the world. She has a lot of health and you can heal her. The problem is, if she gets hit, she won't kill the Druid, and this is a big problem. Because you want to be able to kill the Druids. I mean, they deal a lot of damage. Now, the nice thing is that you can, of course, gang up and kill these enemies, but if you're trying to use characters like Millie or your stronger units, especially over here, I just want to mention how important the Brave Weapons, or how useful the Brave Weapons can be, because if you time spare with the Brave Weapon, which you will, these Druids are slow, as we can see here, you'll just kill the Druid straight up. I mean, you could miss an 89%, but doing this is extremely useful. I'll also just mention Rucker really quick. Rucker's also really good at killing these Druids, although it's a little bit sketchy because he doesn't have 2 range and takes a lot of damage, but he has really high avoid and just the ability to, like, crit. Killing Edge Rucker is a great way to deal with these Druids, but yeah, I just want to mention how useful Killing Edge, or I'm sorry, Brave Weapons are at killing these Druids. Even more useful than Divine Weapons, honestly. Okay, so at this point, I have cleared out most of the units. Rucker actually can get this right now. Oh, it's also, I'll just mention this right now, the units that are on these switches do not move. These units do when there's people in range. And there's a lot of zones in this chapter. So, like, the units that are down here, like, for example, this guy will only start moving when you get to around here. So actually over here I mentioned this is a really sketchy situation, but if you just never move these units, I think the units down here and the units up here will just never attack you. But I've never really played with that, so that might be something you might want to try. But what I really want to talk about are these guys who just spawned. It is turn 10, I believe. Well, 11, they spawned on turn 10. So there's one with Silence, and then as you can see, he also has Physic, and then Sleep, and he also has Physic. So these guys will reach Zephiel, who, as I said, is going to be around here. So like I was saying with the strategy, what we're going to want to do is wait until about turn 45. Like I said, I usually wait until like turn 60, but it doesn't really matter. Something past turn 45 should work, and then we're going to finally kill these guys, because every about 5 to 10 chapters, 5 to 10 turns, they will respawn with the same stuff, so Physics, Sleep, all that annoying stuff. So for the most part, just ignore them, let people get slept, whatever. We have a lot of turns to wait, so for example, my stall getting slept really doesn't matter, because we're gonna have to wait like 40 turns, so the 5-turn sleep is gonna be pretty irrelevant. But yeah, for the most part, all I really want to do from here on out is go down here. I'll get these chests eventually. It doesn't, again, really matter too much. Get this other thing, and then we're gonna circle everyone around here. There is an annoying Physic Druid here that can be a bit annoying, but it actually looks like he can reach Zephiel. I think Zephiel's up here. I'm not sure. I've never seen him heal Zephiel before, so I'm not 100% sure with him. But you don't have to worry too much about this stuff. But yeah, we're just going to be kind of cleaning up the chapter, and then I'll skip around. Probably to when we're ready to go into the throne room. Okay, it is turn 60. As I said, this strategy is a little bit boring. You do have to just stop a lot of turns. But the nice thing is that you have enough time to, again, get everybody in position. And like I said, I would recommend putting them all around the throne room. This sniper is really annoying. You can kill him, or you can just kind of position like I have them. The one thing that I want to mention is, even though I've kind of said that these chests aren't particularly useful, there is a Dragon Shield and Sleep, so kind of useful. There's also a Worm Slayer. There are 2 Manikeets in this room. I gave the Worm Slayer to my Alan. Especially if you didn't bring your divine weapons. I kind of didn't really bring many of them for some reason. But yeah, the Worm Slayer is pretty useful, so that if you're sort of lacking on ways to kill Manikeets, the Worm Slayer can be kind of useful for this last little bit. But yeah, at this stage you can go ahead and just slaughter these bishops, and then once Shin gets close to the throne room, we'll open that up, and then I'll talk about who's in the throne room. Alright, I think we are officially ready to open up the throne room. So all you have to do is take Roy and send him to the middle here. I wonder if you can... I don't think you can put him there. I think you have to put him exactly here. And you get a little cutscene with Zephiel. So as I said, these reinforcements will spawn, but I wouldn't really worry about them. They do have to go... They don't even have physic or anything. They have to go all the way up here and then all the way around. And these ones even have even longer to go. I think they could go through down here. But unless it takes you like 10 plus turns, they're really not going to be able to get to you. So don't worry about them too much. Now, in the throne room, this is actually pretty tough. Even though we don't really have, like, a time-sensitive thing going on here, because we did eliminate these bishops, we do still want to push into here as quickly as we can. And there's some tough units. There's Fenrir Druids, there's these guys, there's these heroes, and then, of course, there's these Manikeets. So this is where the divine weapons are going to be really, really useful. My best recommendation would probably be to just use your strongest units to kill as much as you can on turn, sort of, on their turn. So if you have units that can take like multiple hero hits and the druid, you can do that. I'll probably have Lou go up here along with some paladins and Milady, and maybe see if I can kill these heroes on enemy phase. But yeah, basically do as much damage as you can with the heroes coming to you, and then on the next turn, hopefully you have enough units around here to kill all of the enemies in this throne room, and then you can just take on Zephiel alone. And as you can see, Zephiel is, as I said before, pretty tough. His stats... Oops, sorry about that. His stats aren't insane, but he is pretty bulky, so he will take a little bit to kill, which is why, again, killing those druids... those bishops is really useful. For some reason, he has a Hero's Crest. I don't know why Murdoch was holding a Knight's Crest and he's holding a Hero's Crest. It's funny that if you don't get all the divine weapons, this is literally the end of the game, and you get a Hero's Crest. I don't know. It's kind of bizarre, but yeah, he does have one, so... Okay, so this is basically what I'm talking about. We did get a lucky lance crit to kill one of the heroes, and the other one is pretty wounded. So that's really nice. But yes, what you really want to do is just kill everyone in this throne room right now, and then you can focus on Zephiel on the next turn. Whether you've killed the bishops or not, again, it's just nice to be able to do it rather quickly. And this is, again, where divine weapons are going to be extremely important. We can see Lou using fire, pretty good damage, but Four Blaze is going to absolutely murder these units. The great thing about the divine weapons is when they're effective, because they have so much might, that's why they deal so much damage, because the effective damage is going off that might. That's why they're so strong. So yep, just kill all these units. Hopefully you'll be able to in one turn. If you can't, it's, you can certainly play defensively, but okay, now for Zephiel. Part of what makes killing Zephiel so annoying, other than just him being extremely bulky, is that you can't surround him, which is really annoying because if you've seen my playthrough where we use the Knights triangle attacked everything, you can't actually triangle attack Zephiel, which is really sad. Obviously that won't matter for most playthroughs, but it does make it a bit more annoying to kill him. Now obviously, as you can see, Four Blaze deals, a decent amount of damage, and our Milady with Brave Lance will also deal a decent amount. If I had the divine weapon, it would probably deal a decent amount too. The point is, you can certainly chip him down, but the inability to surround him makes it really difficult to do in one turn. And again, I know I keep going back to this, but if these physic users are still here, it's really, really annoying to kill him. So one of the big reasons to not. But yeah, we're mostly just going to chip him down at this point. By the way, again, super amazing music. You gotta love it. But yeah, mostly just chip him down. Again, he won't be healed at this stage. There is no seizing on this chapter. Once he's dead, we do finish the chapter. Way to go, Lou. Love you, buddy. And yeah. Alright, so we did defeat Zephiel. He actually died on his turn, so we sort of did it in one turn. Oh, I was actually wrong about that. For some reason, so you get no experience for killing Zephiel, but you do have to seize. For some reason, I thought that it just ended when you kill Zephiel. It doesn't really matter. It just means Roy needs to be there. Yep, if we seize, we finish the chapter, and that is it. So again, if you didn't get all the divine weapons, this will be the end of the game. But if you did get all the divine weapons, like we did, you move on to Ghosts of Burn, which we'll talk about next time. So, as I said, we're really close to the end of the game at this stage. There is Ghosts of Burn, and then really just chapter where you murder a crap load of Manicheets. The final chapter in particular is not very difficult, so yeah, but we'll talk about that next time. So as always, if anybody has anything to add about the chapter, anything I missed, anything they want to comment, feel free to do so below. And other than that, I will see you next time. Thanks for watching, everybody.